Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is Blue Maxima and I'm here taking a look at Psycho-Pass, Mandatory Happiness. This is a visual novel, so don't expect the same sort of gameplay from me. I'm mainly just gonna load up a chapter from the story, let it run on auto, and then I'll talk about what I experienced in my first run. And yes, I mean my first entire run. And, well, if you know me, you know that I probably screwed it up. So we're just going to go on anyway. I'll tell you what I did, what I thought, etc, 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 and I'll let you judge for yourself, more or less. So just before we go in, we can have a look around first. You can access these options from within the game itself. However, funnily enough, it actually drops you right into the story as soon as you hit X on the main menu for the first time, so you won't actually see this main menu until you've gone through, like, the first chapter, which is a little strange, but it's not that big of a deal. I don't even know why I brought it up. You can configure your text speed, your auto read speed, and your skip speed here. These are all pretty obvious. Auto speed determines what happens, how fast the text goes on to the next line after it's reached the end of the line. So here it happens pretty much instantly because I've got it on the maximum, but it doesn't start out that way. That's not default. Text speed is obvious. It just determines how fast the text goes across the screen, although this doesn't change the actual text speed when there's a character talking, because they just tend to do that for some reason. I'm not entirely sure why. And skip speed is obvious, just determines how fast it goes through stuff you can skip. And of course, skip only red text and skip all text. It's all here. Much like every other VN ever, you can change the volume of everyone involved. And of course, there's a help functionality here, which just tells you all the controls. Can't change them. And unfortunately, you can't actually use the D-pad as move on to the next bit of text, which is kind of annoying, honestly. Mainly because I like playing these sorts of VNs in my left hand, just holding them in my left hand and pressing a D-pad button or tapping the screen, and neither of them work, so you have to keep your right hand on the console. It's a little bit disappointing, honestly. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. There is some tips, just like in Steins Gate and pretty much every other 5PB novel that's been ported over here. I'm not going to scroll through them because they do have spoilers. One thing that does need to be noted is that Psycho-Pass Mandatory Happiness doesn't actually tell you much about the game's universe. Sure, there are some tips here that will tell you about the world that the game takes place in, but the anime is actually a lot better start to figuring it out, which is a good thing, because when you buy this game, you will get the first 2 episodes of the anime. Now, for some particular reason, I haven't actually been able to access the episodes. This is a review copy, obviously. So I haven't actually been able to access the free episodes. So I actually went and got them via other means, because as it turns out, it wasn't available on Crunchyroll, which is a little bit disappointing, because I would have liked to have seen it through that. I've paid for Crunchyroll for months. I think I've watched Yuri Yuri like 4 times. But yeah, you will get 2 episodes of the anime, and they do recommend that you do watch at least 2 of the episodes. That's what I got in the review email sort of thing. They do recommend you see 2 episodes, and I did. I went on and got the first 2 episodes via not so legal means, and yeah, you definitely need to see the first 2 episodes. Like, you will be floundering around like an incapable fish if you don't watch those episodes, because they do tell you a lot about the universe and what people are doing. It doesn't bring up the tip screen or anything automatically, and even then the tips are kind of hard to scroll through, because if you scroll through them, you have to wait a few seconds before this text comes up, and on the Vita screen, it's actually really small and kind of hard to read. So that's kind of annoying, honestly. But yeah, I would fully recommend watching the first 2 episodes of the anime that you get when you get this game before you get started. Although, to be fair, I imagine the only people who would buy this game off the bat have probably already seen the first few episodes of Psycho-Pass at the very least. So this game takes place in the first 8 episodes or so, and doesn't have any spoilers for the actual story as far as I'm aware. I think that's what I've been told anyway. Now, we do have some extras here. You've got voice messages from the different cast members. It's got all the actors from the anime, so you'll recognize the actors as soon as they come back in and start talking again. You can also buy things like concept art. So that's one of the first scenes in the entire game up there. Unfortunately, I can't afford any of the other concept art just yet. However, there is a really weird way to earn money for the concept art. There's also scene replay here, which will let you replay a bunch of the scenes from the main game. And you can actually play the game as two main characters, which is kind of neat, because it varies the perspective you have on everything. And both characters have something like 8 roots and 8 endings apiece. Although, hilariously, I didn't manage to get on any of them, and I don't know why, but we'll get onto that. To earn points to unlock this stuff, you have to play the game. It doesn't tell you what the game is, and it legitimately made me laugh. Remember a game called 2048? Yeah, this is 2048. It's, if you don't know what 2048 is, the basic idea is that you match 2 numbers of the same amount, and then they add themselves together to add together to make a number of that thing. So if you put 2 2s together, it makes a 4. Put 2 8s together, it makes a 16, etc, 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 right? And more blocks spawn in, and you move the blocks with the D-pad every time, and this is legitimately hilarious. Why is this a thing? I honestly don't know why they made this a thing. It's kind of great. And the idea is you have to get as many matches as possible in order to arrest the suspect. And I legitimately don't know why this is a thing. But now we've earned a bunch of points, and we can use that to go and spend some money. You can also come down here and free play 2048. So if you wanted 2048 on your Vita, buy this completely unrelated science fiction visual novel. I'm not even kidding. That's great. That's hilarious. But yeah, now we've got money, we can actually go buy something. So let's go do that. I'll buy another picture. So, yep, we can just spend the money to unlock the picture. It's probably some more concept art. Indeed it is. So, yep, that's a thing. So now this is where I load into my save game and just let it run. And I'll try and talk about what I think about this game. So, right, I just need to remember which one of these buttons is freaking auto. I think it's the right shoulder. There might be spoilers. Like, there's not that much. I'll try not to spoil anything big, but I'm going to talk about my entire run through this game. So, yeah, we'll just... No. I hit the... Was someone just knocking on my door? Hang on a minute. Nope, no one was knocking on my door. I swear it was the R button before, but I've probably gone and forgotten the, configuration. Hang on. The right button is L. Left shoulder button, of course it is. There we go. So I'll just leave that playing for a little bit, and I'll talk about how the game works. So basically, there's a... The idea is that it's 2070 something. I can't remember the exact year. Or 2080 something. It might be that. And the police force has turned into a bit of a thought crime sort of thing, where people can scan the brains of other people and determine their tendency to become a criminal. And the idea is that generally, like, I've only seen the first 2 episodes of the anime and this game, and the only reason that people have gone mad enough to actually commit a crime is they've been detected by one of these drones that determines they're a lane criminal. But anyway, the idea is you are an enforcer, or at least, you're an inspector, sorry. This character's an inspector that I'm playing right now. This is the lady. The other girl's an enforcer. And the idea is that you're trying to bring down latent criminals before they actually perform crimes, but the problem seems to be that you can't get to them before they commit the crimes. It seems a bit silly to have a thought crime system and not use it to actually stop thought crime, but... Nevertheless, so it's an interesting concept, and the first 2 episodes of the anime actually got me really interested in the prospect, and then I immediately started playing the game, and the game just kind of slows it down a bit, because, again, it really does make an assumption that you've seen the first 2 episodes of the anime, so it doesn't tell you anything about what's going on in the world. You just get dumped into the same office that the protagonists from the anime work in, right? And the idea is that there are a couple of stories. Every chapter focuses on a different crime, and you have to go and, well, basically the idea is you have to just basically read the story and wait until you have an opportunity to decide to do something, right? So, yeah, the idea is that once you go out on a case or a crime scene or something like that, this is the second chapter, by the way, so this is like hour or so in, like nothing major. So the idea is that you have to try and save as many people as possible while doing as little damage as possible, and there are some twists and turns in the way the story works here and there. But basically, it remains about the same thing. You go through, you wait for a decision to be made, you make the decision, and you've also got your own mental health to manage. Like, so if I hit the square button here, you'll be able to see my Psycho-Pass on the top right, which determines how stressed I am and how likely I am to become a latent criminal. So it is something that can, fairly traumatic events can force people into becoming latent criminals. And you have the opportunity to manage your ability to stay calm by taking things like supplements or choosing not to take them. And I imagine different routes require you to be on different things. I'll just hop back into the actual game and put it back on auto before I spend too long on the pause screen. And it is a very visual novel is what I'm trying to say. You do get decisions to make from time to time, and the decisions are quite obvious. Well, actually, no, they're not quite obvious, but we'll get onto that. But yeah, the right thing to do is often quite, what's the word I'm looking for? Quite difficult to figure out. Like, every option seems right. Every option seems like it'd be the best thing to do. So, it is quite difficult to figure out what exactly you're meant to do in order to be most successful. And different things can happen depending on what you do, but basically the idea is that, yeah, you're going to screw up a few times. It's no one's fault in particular. And you'll just continue on like this throughout the story. You'll be reading the text. Honestly, the voice acting isn't that particularly great. Like, it isn't particularly good at all. Well, I mean, it's not unbearable or bad or anything. It's just unremarkable, more or less. I really didn't feel the need to listen to it. I've just been skipping through the majority of the text. You can hear the voice acting in the background. I think the main problem that I have with this story, and not having been engaged as much as I would hope, is that the two protagonists that you have seem like the two most boring characters of the bunch. I spent like 40 minutes watching Psycho-Pass episode 1 and 2, and I'm interested in every other character except these two, and I've been with these two for like 2 hours now. They both seem like really boring characters, and I was able to actually guess what one of the major twists in the story was, just by thinking about it, honestly. Like, I'm not very good at doing that. When I can do it, it's a problem. So, yeah, they call the protagonist I'm playing right now Ms. Droid, aka Nadeshiko, the droid character. She's unemotional, and it's actually true. It provides no, like, reasonable story, it provides no reasonable emotional substance. She's really unrelatable as a character, at least in the first route that I went through. I didn't try the blue-shirted guy on the right, who's the other protagonist, but he's not particularly interesting either. So, I'm trying to avoid talking about spoilers about the story here, but there's a point where I might just end up doing it by accident. But yeah, both the main protagonists are actually really uninteresting people, and everyone else is, which is a major problem. Like, the guy on the left there he actually has a really interesting character development scene in this chapter of the game, but the other two just haven't had any. There's like one between the two of them, and then just nothing. I feel like there's no effort being taken to engage me in the actual story. And considering that there's no effort to, like, really introduce the world, or at least show the world for how interesting of a thing it is without actually having to rely on the anime, it feels like a disappointing production, I gotta say. It continues. There are twists and turns here and there, and it gets a little bit strange later on, and then, like, let me tell you about how my experience with this game went. I went through chapter 1 and 2 fine. Then chapter 3 came along. There was a big conflict. The main antagonist and the protagonists met up. There was a big fight, and then there were a couple of turning points. Like, you might notice up in the top right, I'm just going to let this footage continue on for a while, even when I'm done with my commentary. But, up in the top right corner of the screen, it will say decision point whenever a major turning point in the story is made, when you're going to go down a different route. So, there weren't that many in chapter 3 until after the big fight and the case had all been resolved and all that. So, I was just going through this main story. I finished up the chapter 3's main thing, and then I'm trying to figure out a way to describe it that won't spoil anything, but I went to therapy because that's something that happens every now and again. Then the big twist, well, not the big twist, but a big twist came up. And then in the next couple of like screens, like this is like one screen here, one screen worth of text. In 3 screens worth of text, there were 2 turning point dialogues, but there was no choices or anything for me to make. And then a few more screens later, bad end. And I legitimately don't know what I did wrong. It's really strange. Like, I thought I was doing everything alright, but apparently I did something wrong because I didn't have the information to continue on. So, yeah, I'm not entirely sure what I did wrong, honestly. I got the cases all solved just fine. Like, a couple of people died, and I'm pretty sure you're capable of stopping it if you're quick enough, but I don't know, maybe I just did everything wrong and I got stuck on a bad end, but man, it was a bit of a shock, I gotta tell you. Just getting shoved straight into the bad end, and the bad end wasn't even really that much of a bad end. It was literally just life continues on as normal, but you never see the antagonist again, which is very strange. But yeah, and it's funny because this just comes right after a big twist is revealed, so you would think it would lead somewhere, but no, you're stuck on the bad end immediately. I legitimately don't know what I did wrong. I'm thinking that scene comes up no matter what route you decide to fall onto, but at the same time, it was just weird. Like, this is a visual novel, so I tend to get into the worst situations all the time. Like, when I originally played 999, first ending I got to was the fucking submarine. But yeah, I legitimately don't know what I did wrong, and it kind of killed all my enthusiasm to play through any other routes. This was after about 2.5 hours of play, more or less, give or take. So it's, man, I know it sounds weird, like I know I'm basically blaming the game for me falling down the wrong route, but the writing isn't that interesting, the voice acting isn't that interesting, and the lack of explanations of the world or the characters or anything like that that's involved, either the new ones or the old ones. Like, there's a little bit of emphasis on who the main antagonist is, and you get a few scenes alone with him to figure out who he is, but frankly, they take 3 or 4 scenes to describe what could easily be done in 1 or 2. They really stretch it out, and I don't see the point in it, but yeah, it's not that interesting. That's the thing. I find myself being more and more uninterested the more of it I play, especially when all the cases tend to play out the same way. You read about half an hour worth of text, which you can't even speed up completely, so you can't like skip through the cutscenes. Like, this text speed here, unless you're constantly hammering away at the X button, you're not going to be able to skip through this text, and it takes ages to get anywhere in this game, and it's a little bit disappointing, honestly. At least it feels like it takes ages. In Steins Gate, sure, Steins Gate had a few pacing problems as well, but the thing about Steins Gate is that it actually had an interesting story to back it up. This game really doesn't. I mean, it's pretty obvious from the get-go who the bad guy is, who the good guys are, what the secret identity of the good guys are. Hell, it outright tells you this in the 3rd chapter, and it doesn't leave any mystery. Like, you can figure it out so quickly, and I don't feel the need to play the rest because I have an idea of what's going on already, but yeah. I don't know, maybe this is something that's meant for, like, maybe people who have seen the anime completely, or at least through the first 8 or so episodes, will feel more for Psycho Pass Mandatory Happiness than I do, but considering that I watched the first 2 episodes of Psycho Pass and really enjoyed what I saw, and at the same time, not having any feelings for this game at all, I feel like it's the game's fault more than the anime's fault, more or less. I don't really know what else to say about it. I mean, the decisions are fairly obvious things. The cases are, I mean, alright, a little bit of a spoiler for the first chapter here. The first chapter of Psycho Pass, Mandatory Happiness, is almost exactly the same as the first episode of the anime. It's this really weird mirror sort of thing. I was hoping for something a little more original, but they kind of went for almost a beat for beat sort of thing. Well, not so much a beat for beat sort of thing, but it ends the same way, more or less. I mean, you can technically, I'm pretty sure you could make it end slightly differently, but yeah, it's, I imagine there is a different ending to that sort of case, but it is kind of like beat for beat the same sort of thing that the first episode is, and it just kind of stinks of unoriginality. The second case, considering I haven't seen further in the anime than the second episode, maybe I'm overblowing this, but it's just not as original, so who knows? I'm trying to look at this from the perspective of someone who's just bought the game and not seen the anime, so I don't really know. But yeah, it's honestly, it's going to be like half an hour of text if I leave it through like this anyway, but yeah, you make a decision, it turns out differently, and then hopefully you don't get stuck into a bad end like I do, and that's basically it. It's not as interesting as I would have hoped, and I don't really know what to say about it. I feel like maybe I should spend some more time with it, but at the same time, I feel like maybe I should go back and watch the anime, but considering you can't get the anime on any streaming service as far as I'm aware, I know there's more than Crunchyroll, but I don't think you can get this Psycho Pass anywhere, so I don't know. At least it works alright in terms of the gameplay standards, although it would be nice if I could like move the cursor and stuff with the D-pad. I think that's enough of that. But seriously, it goes on like this for ages. So if I see, as you can see here, we've got a choice now, so we can go with whichever one we like, and it doesn't really matter. Like we can go. You get different scenes, so but it does tend to end up in the same place. So that's it. It's not terrible. It's just I find very little reason to be engaged with it. So yeah. I wouldn't recommend it outright. Maybe fans of the show would like it, but if you haven't actually seen the show, it's kind of hard to recommend, like, at all, honestly. Because, again, it's not very beginner friendly, because you do have to watch the first 2 episodes of the anime, which they do give you, don't get me wrong, but they don't do very much character diversity, at least in the route that I played, and as shown by my amazing fuck-up, it's very easy to fall into the bad ending, so who knows? I mean, I know I'm basically judging a book by its cover, or by its cover in its first 20 pages, but I don't know. Considering it's a visual novel that would take hours upon hours to get through, I feel a little bit better about saying that, about doing this sort of thing, because, you know, spending 20-something hours on a visual novel only to find that you didn't really enjoy it at the end is something a little disappointing, but yeah. I only recommend it to people who like the anime, honestly. Like, if you've seen the anime and you want more of the anime, well, I mean, this is probably where you want to go. If you haven't seen the anime, I probably wouldn't recommend it. Maybe if you can find a way to watch Psycho Pass's first 2 episodes, or just the whole thing. Like, I'd probably recommend watching the whole thing over playing this. And only playing this if you decide that you want more, but, yeah. That's all I got. I mean, I know this has basically been an unstructured ramble, but I really don't know what else to tell you. I haven't enjoyed it very much. I don't think it's a very good visual novel, and it's just not engaging. At least not in the ending that I got. Especially considering I was able to figure out the massive twist beforehand, so yeah. This has been Blue Maxima. If you have questions or anything about this anything else about this game, you can leave them in the comments, but, you know, I don't know what to say about it. I have trouble critiquing visual novels because I don't do it very often, so, yeah. Considering that. This has been Blue Maxima, and I'll see you all next time.